This is Marianne, who works for the NHS, and you've been working in mental health for about 4 years?
2 years.
2 years, okay. I'm Belle, and we're going to talk about depression today. So I feel quite passionate about this because I've suffered depression myself over the years, and have actually been on and off antidepressants when I was a teenager, and in my early 20s. Yeah, so and I think it's quite a big topic. I think a lot of people can struggle with it, and I don't know how much help there is for people out there, in the sense of like even admitting that you have it, or even knowing that you have it. Because I'll just quickly share an example. So when I moved to London 5 years ago, I sort of, was from a very sunny country, and everybody's very like affectionate and huggy, and my love language is affection. So I sort of came here and people were a little bit not as friendly and not very affectionate, and I was far away from my family. I was here on my own, and I started getting depressed without realizing it until one day, like I was like, this isn't normal that I can't get out of bed on a Saturday, because I was like, do not want to get out of bed. I was like, maybe I'm depressed. And so it's kind of like recognizing that you have depression, because sometimes you can fall into it and not know you have it, which is weird. I think that's what happened to me, because it was like a whole new culture and just adjusting to everything was like quite a big thing. So yeah, and then kind of being like, okay, well now, how do I deal with this? Was obviously my step forward. So, I'm going to hit you with some questions. Alright, so the first question obviously is like, because I guess I didn't really know what depression was in the definition, so I didn't really realize I was depressed. What is depression?
Okay, so I'm just going to introduce me. First, say that I work for a mental health trust in a community mental health team. My profession is actually an occupational therapist, so I'm not actually, I guess my information will be coming from quite sort of a general, very, very general background. I'm not necessarily medical, but I do a lot of therapeutic work. I work with a wide range of mental health conditions. So tonight I'm going to focus specifically on depression, and probably more mild to moderate depression than sort of really, really severe. But I mean, and a lot of the work I do is kind of lifestyle management and things like that. But I'm sort of going to, I've just collated some really, really general information. I mean, the question, what is depression, is a huge question, because in many ways it's a bit of an umbrella term for a lot of different symptoms. And I think obviously there's many different problems that people have with their mental health, and lots of them come with things which can be depression can be part of like another mental health condition that you have, and it can also be sort of part of like a physical health condition, so it's really big. I would say I would characterise it in the following ways. So it's like, I'd say an ongoing, unshifting sense of hopelessness and helplessness. I think that's one of the key things with depression, particularly like the hopelessness and helplessness, and the fact that it doesn't shift. It's usually related to like having a very, very low mood, and often like a feeling of heaviness and weariness and lack of energy as well. So those kind of two quite key symptoms with it. And the thing is, it's pervasive, so it doesn't go away. That's how you're feeling ongoing, and it's really hard to shift it. So also, as well as low mood, often it's a feeling of numbness or emptiness, or you just feel blank. Like, you don't feel sad, but you don't feel happy about anything either, so that can be part of depression.
And there's some people who feel that wouldn't know they're depressed because they don't necessarily feel like really sad, like, oh, I want to cry, but they're just not feeling at all.
Yeah, they feel very numb.
Yeah, so okay.
And very flat, and it just doesn't lift no matter what they do. I mean, I think in terms of just generally talking about emotions, I think it's good to differentiate from natural feelings of sadness. So part of the human condition is to feel grief, feel sadness, and actually feel low or bored or fed up. So that is part of what makes you human. I think life is tough. Everyone goes through a hard time at some point in their life, some more so than others. So I think it's like if you lose someone who's really close to you, you might feel really low for a long time afterwards, but that's kind of natural grief that's quite healthy to feel and process. I mean, you might just be stuck somewhere that you're just really fed up, so you just go through a month of feeling really low and you don't really know why. Again, that's often just normal for a lot of people. So I think I always want to sort of differentiate depression from just, not pathologizing normal feelings of sadness or unhappiness. I think a lot of the problem with culture, say maybe this culture, is that, or lots of cultures actually, is that there's a focus on feeling happy, being optimistic. I think with British culture it's very much, it's been a bit of a stiff upper lip attitude of, I'll manage it and I can do it, and
I'm fine, everything's fine, and so I'm back at the ranch, so right home and crying.
So you've got the old stiff upper lip kind of battle on mentality, keep calm and carry on chats kind of thing, but then there's the whole sort of positive thinking, and you a glass half full or glass half empty person, be an optimist. I think sometimes, even like I've been in, I go to church, and some of the churches I've been to, it's like, make sure they always see you with a big smile on your face when you've been doing door duty, like, never let your smile fade, no one wants to see an unhappy face. So I think
it's not real.
There's a lot of focus on being happy all the time, and I think that was the film Inside Out last year, which I don't know if any of you saw.
I love that film.
That I think really highlights, so basically it's kind of the emotions have, they're personified, and there's joy and there's sadness, and for a long time sadness is seen as this kind of, we're just hiding sadness, we don't want to acknowledge sadness, it's all about joy and feeling good, and sometimes anger. And actually at the end of the film, sadness actually plays quite a key part. So I think that just highlighted how the focus is on feeling joyful.
Joy without sadness.
Yeah, and so basically I think sometimes you have that, but then you also have an awful lot of very negative things being thrown at you all the time as well. So you often feel maybe bombarded with really negative news stories, worrying things, quite sort of, oh my god, this is happening, we all need to be really worried. So I think at the moment there's a bit of a weird kind of balance of be an optimist, be happy, with, oh my god, we're all going to die kind of thing out there in culture. So I think sometimes it's quite hard in that sort of where to channel your emotions with all of that. I would say just one thing about emotions is that they change. So we've just been talking about British weather, and I think I relate emotions to British weather. So it's very changeable, and sometimes even if you don't feel it. So I do mountaineering and lots of hill walking, and I find you start on this walk and you've got this leaden grey sky and maybe even fog and you can't see anything, and it's like that for hours, and you think, I can't imagine this changing. This feels so I'm so encompassed, but then you might just drop down a bit lower into a valley and suddenly the fog clears and you've got this beautiful sunny day. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And I think sometimes that's like that with emotions. They're not fixed. Even if they can feel really fixed, they're not. They change. And sometimes just keeping hold of that is quite hard for anyone to, I think, do. So I think with depression, the key thing is that it is pervasive, it's unshifting, and often it's things like, you're just constantly thinking about really negative things, really sad things, and it's almost like it's overpowering, like you can't keep a handle on it. Yeah. So I think it's if you feel sad a lot of the time, but then you go out with your mates and you have a laugh, and it shifts, but I think it's when it becomes really problematic, is when that thought doesn't shift. And it's harder and harder to shift it, and it stops you functioning as you would do normally. I think that is when it starts becoming problematic. So, my notes here. So I think the more severe depression can lead to people being in bed all the time, feeling really exhausted, really slowed down, constantly crying, finding it really hard to complete simple tasks. So it can be really, really hard. It can make it really hard to function, or it is just that you're getting up every day, dragging yourself to work, thinking, what's the point? But I think it's when it doesn't shift.
Yeah.
That's when
you need help.
Difficult and problem.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's kind of when you need to be like, okay, this isn't shifting. Now I need to get help. So obviously then the next question is, what do you do? So now let's say, for example, thinking of myself, so I moved to London, I didn't really have many friends, I had no family, I was new, the culture was different, I spoke the language but it wasn't the same culture. I was struggling, I was in a city, because I was from a little town, Durban, which is really relaxed, and it's by the sea, and it's always hot and sunny. Now suddenly I'm in this crazy city, it's go, 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 and everyone's driven, and like you said, they're always just like, you can do it, you can't cry, you can't